Hello, survivors. Welcome to the State of Decay 2 stream. I'm your host, Geoffrey Card, and the Curveball update has finally arrived. We're recording this as of September 18th, 2023, and that is the release date of Update 34. But because we've had the Wushu folks in here to talk about the Curveball update so much, they've basically given you all of the key information. We've got a couple of pieces of info that we can drop on you, but really, this is just going to be me and Eric checking out the game and chilling with it because, it's been a while since the two of us have worked on State of Decay 2, and, we've got some stuff to learn about what Wushu's been doing. So, speaking of Eric, I should introduce Eric. Look, it's Eric! It's Eric Anderson!
Hi, everyone. Good to be here.
You all remember him. So he was the associate product director on State of Decay 2 for quite some time. He basically was kind of running the creative side of the show while after I left. And now both of us are working together on another game. And so we're coming back to sort of revisit what's going on in State of Decay 2 and check out the Curveball update. So for those of you who don't know, the Curveball update it's basically, it's a new feature in State of Decay 2 where after you have been playing the game for, 5 in-game days, it introduces these sort of wild cards that get thrown into the experience, where we change up, there's a new weird kind of zombie, or there's somebody threatening your supplies, or there's some situation going on in the world where you have to think about the fighting differently, you have to think about your resources differently, and it just changes up constantly. And so if you're brand new to the game, you've never played it before, you won't see it for a few hours. But if you've been playing the game for a while, once this update drops, if you play in one of your old communities, you're going to start seeing these things immediately. Eric, are you ready for us to sort of get into the gameplay?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just kind of sorting out what I'm going to do here, but yeah, let's jump into it.
All right, so Eric is equipping his characters right now, but for those of you who have not seen this before, a bunch of you have been playing this already in our public test realm on Steam, and so I think a bunch of folks in our live audience already know everything about this, and so you're not going to be getting a lot of new stuff from us, just a couple of things maybe, but for those of you who are completely brand new, once Eric is done sort of equipping his character, grabbing all the gear that he wants, we can show you the Curveball menu and what is going on in the map right now that Eric's going to want to go and deal with. He's playing one of my communities, so he's totally unfamiliar with these characters and
so I'm trying to figure out what gear I have in here and everything. So, yeah, we can jump to the Curveball menu because actually I think that's what I'm going to do first. So, we've got this Lone Raider Curveball, which is the second of the tutorial Curveballs. Where there are some raiders that are kind of basically, the idea is that they're kind of hijacking, I think, your outposts and kind of preventing you from getting the income you normally get. So I think that's going to be my first goal, is to go take out those raiders. Because then once we do that and clear out this, then it'll allow other curveballs to start kicking in as well. So
my community is also particularly short on fuel, so the fact that it's cutting off our fuel supply lines is probably a big deal. So we'll want to take care of that as quickly as we can. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so you looked up the Curveball menu. You can see here exactly what's required of you, what's going on the map. Lots and lots of information. You can do research on these curveballs and find all the information that you need to play with them. But then this guy is also marked on the map, isn't he?
Yep. And so I can also look here. I can go down. There's a section just for curveballs. Based objectives. So not all curveballs have objectives, but the ones that do will show up on the goals list here, and then you can see where that actually is taking place. So it's the other side of the map, as far away as possible, of course.
Well, hey, maybe we can spend some of the time that it takes you to get down to that curveball talking about some of the caveats that we should let people know about, because there's a couple of things that didn't go exactly perfectly with the launch, and so we should let people know, that we're aware of them and that we're working on them. So while Eric's doing that, I took a couple of notes here because I talked to the Wushu folks over Slack this morning, saying hey, how are things going? What's going on? And one thing they pointed out was there are, I think, around... Okay, so the number of curveballs that we shipped is a question that we've been getting a lot. How many curveballs are there? So on our internal list, we've got 35 curveballs, but it's more complicated than that. Because one of those curveballs, called Influx of Meds, I believe it showed up in the public test realm, but it's not actually live in the game right now because they found a last-minute bug with it they didn't have time to fix before they went live. So they just disabled the curveball, which was going to be the simplest solution for everybody. So there's actually only 34 curveballs in the game. But also, if you're counting curveballs, there's one curveball called, I think, Strange Mutations, that actually is 3 different curveballs. It's the explosive gunk curveball, but it also includes a couple of other weird effects on zombies that are effectively different curveballs. So depending on how you count, there might be 35 curveballs, there might be 34, there might be 36. I don't know. You'll just have to decide which of those numbers works for you. But yeah, so they are aware that the influx of meds, if you saw it during the public test realm, you won't see it right now, but they are working on a fix for it, and they'd like to get a fix out the door sometime in the near future. Another thing that was pointed out to me was actually pointed out by an audience member. Ranethcord sent me a link today to a Reddit post that pointed out there is actually an infinite influence exploit in the game. So if you're into that kind of thing, if you're not into that kind of thing, which I'm not, I tend not to use those when they're available. Go ahead and ignore it. If you are into those, you've got a limited time. Look that up on Reddit. Figure out how to do it. But the Wushu team is aware of the fact that there is this exploit in the game, and they're looking for a solution. So, you might have a tiny window of time to get infinite influence, but don't expect that to stick around for very long. So, yeah, but those are kind of the caveats that we've got on our, on sort of our list. As far as we know, this has actually been a fairly smooth launch beyond those issues. Of course, if you run into any problems, definitely go to support.stateofdecay.com and let us know, because so far we haven't gotten a lot of people clamoring about big problems. But if there are some that we haven't discovered yet, we definitely want to know about it. So go to support.stateofdecay.com. Lodge a ticket with us with whatever issue you're facing, because we would love to make sure that stuff gets fixed. I know that La Coalición, for instance, who runs a State of Decay 2 and other games-focused community in Mexico, has noticed that a few elements of the curveball feature didn't get localized. So it's just basically English text hard-coded rather than being translated. And so when that happens in one language, it usually means that we've marked it wrong, and it's also happening in every language. So if you play the game in a language other than English, there might be a few places where you'll see English text. And we'll want to fix that as soon as we can, too. La Coalición is reporting a bunch of it. If you find it, feel free to report it, too. We'd love to know everything that we can about it. So Chucky Bucky's asking, is this live on Xbox today? I can put down Mortal Kombat 1 now. Now, we're not trying to get you to put down your other games. I appreciate that. Like, I've been playing Starfield like a fanatic lately. But that is kind of one of the things we like to do with these updates is, we've got... Not only do they kind of grow and expand the game over the time and make it, a better and better experience over time, but it also kind of gives you a reason to come back, or like if you because it's hard to play the same game all the time your entire life. Some folks find a game that really resonates with them that way, but most of us do like to change things up periodically. And big updates like the Curveball update kind of give you an opportunity to go, you know what? I haven't played that game in a while. Maybe I should come back and check it out again. This might be sort of the right time to do it. Because otherwise, you might just not know, well, when is the right time to go back to an old game? I don't know, when I'm super bored. And I think it's usually better to come back to a game when there's something interesting to do, something that's, capturing your attention, rather than just, I had nothing better to do and I hate all my other games now.
That's kind of how I typically play games nowadays, is I'll leave them alone for like maybe a year or so, or 2 maybe, and then when I hear about a big update that's come out, and I'm like, I'm always in between games or something like that. I'm like, this might be a great time to jump back into something I haven't played in a long time and see where it's at.
Yeah, totally. So it looks like you're really close to where you were headed on the other side of the map. Yeah,
I just gotta lose all the zombies.
I should mention that Eric is playing on Nightmare difficulty, which is a little higher difficulty than I often play this community at. So he's issued himself a challenge. So
I'm also typically a lot more cautious than I'm going to be, because these aren't my characters, so
exactly.
I don't care.
I'm the only one who suffers if there's a problem, so that's totally fine.
So, yeah, normally I would be very methodical in coming in here. I would sneak in, and I would probably use the zombies to take out this raider using noisemakers and whatnot, and I would never get into combat myself, but these aren't my characters, and I also don't exactly know everything that I have on me, so I'm just gonna kind of wing it, I think, a little bit. And if someone dies, that's just good content.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, it reminds me of when we used to, when we brought State of Decay Lifeline to PAX for the first time, and we found that more people joined the line to play the game if they saw other people die horribly on the screen. Like getting ripped in half by a feral was the favorite. Like if that happened, like the line would suddenly surge.
That's my favorite thing, is watching other people die in these games. That's why I like watching horror games. I hate horror games myself, but I like seeing other people get scared.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of times some of my followers on my personal stream will, especially La Coalición, will try to get me to play horror games just because I'm such a disaster at them. It's funny to watch me just be terrible. I have no idea what I'm doing and just get really, really scared. So, okay, so I was about to say you might have been about to encounter an issue, one of the other issues that the Wushu team called out to me, which is that sometimes when you down a hostile, they will just stay stuck down and they won't get up again. It looks like in this case it didn't happen to you, that the hostile did start getting up on their own.
Yeah.
Usually what will happen is when this bug is incurred, the hostile will fall down and they'll just stay down forever until you attack them. Then they'll figure out what's going on and they'll rejoin you. But it looks like you defeated the Lone Raider, and so that means I think that curveball should be resolved now.
Yeah, and now I got baddies coming.
Okay, yeah. So once you feel safe, we should check out the curveball menu and see. Whoa, did you just get hit on your way over?
I think so.
That's pretty funny.
Jerk.
Yeah, I was the other day I was playing. I was trying to get away from a feral, and I tried climbing a ladder, and the feral just jumped and knocked me off the ladder.
Oh man.
I forgot that they could do that.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm mostly safe now. All right, let's see what we have. So yeah, so now we can see, yep, it's been cleared and moved into the ended section. So,
okay, so now we're basically just killing time until the next curveball drops.
Yeah, so now it should be just to the kind of open-ended system where whatever happens will happen now. Whatever rolls will come up. So hopefully we'll get some interesting things to pop up now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what the cadence is. Like, I'm sure that if Bishop or John are watching us right now, they're probably like, oh, I know exactly how long it's probably going to wait. But at some point, hopefully during the stream, we should get a third curveball. And when that happens, that we'll be able to see. And it'll be totally random, like Eric was saying. Those first two curveballs are always the same because they seemed like sort of good representations of the kinds of things players should expect. So they're really good places to start when you're tutorializing things. But then after that, it's just, I wouldn't say, I was about to say it's just random. It's not just entirely random. There are rules under the surface that are determining which curveballs feel appropriate to the player.
There's things also to make sure they happen kind of in a context that makes sense as well. So yeah, there's some conditionals, but there's a good bit of randomness too. And there's definitely there's pacing mechanisms to make sure you're not seeing the same curveball over and over and over, that you need to see a few other ones first before it pops up again, stuff like that. So it's not entirely random.
So we got a question from Sig Marbles. They want to know, how come you guys didn't add any new achievements for Curveball?
I think mostly, I think it's something probably wasn't on Wushu's kind of radar, and also I think it came up later. I think marketing asked about that, and honestly, setting up new achievements is a big pain in the ass. And
especially if it's something that's really varied, like Curveball. Like if there's something that's just really straightforward, it's always the same every time. You can set up some pretty sort of simple things for the game to watch for to give you credit for achievements. Curveball has such variety. I imagine that the achievements might have been particularly onerous for something.
Yeah, especially with the random nature, because if it's you do things like kill the Black Plague Heart or something like that, but then it doesn't roll for you, then that kind of sucks. Then it's out of your control.
Yeah,
so
I think that kind of it harks back to the Echo Weapons achievement in Heartland, where basically only there was a decent chance that just one campaign of Heartland would literally be unable to satisfy that achievement because not all of the Echo Weapons happened to show up in the loot tables. And it wasn't until much later that Joe Swarner went in and he implemented a bunch of mission content effectively to make sure that the Echo Weapons showed up. And so we weren't actually allowed to change that achievement, because once you've got an achievement on the books, you can't change it. But we were allowed to give you a different mechanism that you could use to satisfy it. So it would be very easy for something like that to get very frustrating if there's a lot of randomness, like there were with the loot tables involved with it.
It's also actually setting it up on the platform side of things can be a real headache, especially on the Microsoft side of things. The tools are not great, and I think we also wanted to spare, as Wushu's kind of onboarding into SOD2, we kind of wanted to spare them from the major headache that is, because it is a huge pain, and there's always so many issues to sort out that you have to keep going back and forth with, and it was just, I think it would have taken too much focus off of getting the feature actually done with the scope of what it was, and them getting onboarded as well.
But nothing stops a developer from adding achievements later on for features that have been in the game for a while. I mean, we could add an achievement now that has to do with a feature that launched in 2018, and that would be totally fine. So nothing stops us from doing that eventually, even if it didn't happen with this particular. Oh, you just come over and you just kill their pet immediately? Is that?
Oh yeah.
You just came over to somebody else's house.
I didn't even notice that he was tethered.
That was Fido.
I see a zombie and I kill it.
He's got all these habits. I mean, I could totally see that happening. Like, if this, like in a TV show of this, like I could totally see that being exactly what happens.
Hey man, I took care of your zombie problem for you, by the way.
We were using that. So Brian Menard wants to know if there's any way to make curveballs happen faster, because the situation we're in right now, we would love to see a curveball right now, but we don't control it. So right now there is no setting or anything like that that's exposed to players that lets them tune the frequency of curveballs up and down. It's basically Wushu spent their efforts trying to nail a good cadence for people who aren't interested in customizing it, and that was probably challenging enough, trying to come up with a cadence that was satisfying and exciting and work for a lot of players. So so if players are really interested in that, and you folks make your voices heard and everything, that's not an insane thing to ask for, is to tweak a number like that. But I'm not surprised that they didn't ship with it.
Well, I'll comment on that and say I know that when we were doing play testing on it, that was one of the things that we got a lot of mixed feedback on, whereas a lot of people were like, these are coming way too fast and too many at once, and then a few people were like, this is too slow. And it's just different player tastes. So no promises, but it is something that we want to look in to see what we can do to kind of possibly expand on some of our controls over curveballs in the future. So we're going to see what we can do there, if there's some pacing, adjustables maybe, but there's no promises. But we want to see if we can make something like that easily accessible.
That sounds great, especially for like Brian Menard. He's a popular State of Decay streamer amongst many other games, and I imagine particularly for a streamer, I could imagine somebody wanting to turn that to 11, so they're constantly getting weird new things thrown at them. Versus somebody who they just like the game as it was. They weren't expecting the curveball update, and they don't want it to cramp their experience, cramp their style by interrupting something that has become sort of a vibe that they like to get into. So I could see somebody like that not wanting it to happen very frequently, or wanting to even turn it off, which is an option, by the way.
Yeah.
In the settings menu, you can turn curveballs off if you don't want to see them. Though I would definitely say give them a try for a while before you turn them off. Don't just turn them off reflexively, because a lot of the new stuff they add to the game really is pretty fun, whether you immediately recognize it or not.
But yeah, one thing I'm also hoping we can get it. I mean, again, this is not promising anything, but along with the pacing, because I think there's a few different things to look at in terms of how often do new ones pop up, but also how long do they stay around, and also just how many good or bad ones do you get. That's something we want to look at. Is can you lean more because personally, when I play this, I like playing on a harder difficulty with lots of the beneficial ones that pop up. Where I like kind of playing almost beyond my means, and then having the positive ones kind of act like surprise Christmas, essentially. And so we're looking into seeing if we can maybe have something where you can kind of choose what kind of balance you want also.
Paul Anthony Alvaron wants to know, do curveballs affect difficulty? Do they affect game difficulty? So if you mean, do they affect the formal difficulty that the game is set to? Are you no longer at nightmare difficulty if a curveball kicks in? Or is a curveball different if you're at nightmare difficulty versus green difficulty versus lethal difficulty? And as I understand it from what Wushu has said, I believe that they don't directly interact with each other, that difficulty doesn't affect curveballs and curveballs don't affect difficulty, except to the degree that difficulty changes everything about the game. And so you're doing the curveball, if you've got a curveball that says, go fight these raiders, those raiders are going to be a lot tougher in lethal than they would be in green. So the difficulty is definitely relevant, but I don't think there's a lot. If there are any direct connections where because it's this difficulty, that means this happens in this curveball, I'm pretty sure there's very little of that, if any at all.
Yeah, as far as I know, nothing like that where only certain curveballs are opened up, let's say, because we want everyone to be able to experience kind of all the content.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, there's definitely curveballs that will make it harder. Like, there's specific curveballs that are just yeah, it's a more challenging experience. But there's also ones that are beneficial, or some that are a mix of a positive and a negative. Because on the whole, the goal wasn't to just make the game harder; it was to change things up. So,
yeah, it's more about variety, less about difficulty.
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
expecting a lot of these things that you run into, things like, oh, there's a raider. Like, you could run into a hostile NPC under normal circumstances. The curveball didn't increase the difficulty by introducing one of those things. It's already in the game at that difficulty level. You just have a different reason to do it this time.
Yeah, so hopefully over a long period of time, it shouldn't be harder or easier. It should be kind of balanced, but there will be definitely, I think, peaks and valleys where it's going to get tough at points, and then sometimes you might have it a little easier because of the nice beneficial ones. But also, I think keeping, if you have feedback, like if you're like, overall, I do think it's way easier or way harder, I think that's also feedback you want. Because tuning that stuff, it's really tricky, and it needs a lot of iteration. And so, especially with like our processes, we have to put something out there, then get feedback, then make a change, and then wait until the players can test that again, and then see if that, was the right balance. So there's a lot of back and forth that needs to happen, so it doesn't end just with the release. So please keep paying attention to whether you think the difficulty has shifted too much in one direction, and let us know.
By the way, definitely turn your flashlight on so people can see a little bit.
Oh,
better.
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make a huge difference, unfortunately, but that's our fault. But yeah, it makes it a little bit easier. So I tried. I meant to set up this save so that it was in the morning when you took it over, but I actually spent a little bit too much time in preparation, and so I didn't. So we're going to end up spending a lot of this stream at night. But
yeah,
hopefully
that's something I have to get used to, is playing for other people that need to be able to actually see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I see the eyes. I just shoot at eyes, and that's fine. But that's probably not the best viewing experience.
Yeah, that actually kind of, both that and the difficulty discussion kind of reminded me of one of the things we contended with when we were first adding the green zone to the game, which was, one way we could make the game easier was just take the zombies out, like have there be practically no zombies in the map. Like, the game definitely gets easier at that point, but that's not what people want. Like, when somebody wants to play in the green zone, they don't want to play in a world that has no zombies in it. They want to play in a world that does live the same fantasy as everybody else. It's, oh crap, there's a lot of zombies here. They just want it to be a little easier to fight them, or a little easier to survive them, and not have to hone some ridiculous, insane skill in order to just enjoy the experience. And so that's something that that we think about a lot when it comes to difficulty. Like, you can't just, like what Eric was saying about not wanting to cut out curveballs at different difficulty levels, have there certain be like, oh, this is a lethal only curveball, or this is a green only curveball. We didn't want that because we want people who are playing in the green zone to have effectively the same fantasy as people who are playing in the lethal zone. It's just it just requires different things, different inputs from the player in order to make it work. So that's worth keeping in mind. So Joshua and Jordan have a quick question. They want to know what happens if all of your people in State of Decay die. The game ends. So that's a difference from State of Decay 1. In State of Decay 1, at least in the original, oh gosh, bloaters, at least in the original game, the original sort of campaign, if you lost all your playable characters, we just give you one. Like, a new person shows up at the community and you get to keep going. In Breakdown, we actually added fail conditions. And in Lifeline, we actually added fail conditions. And so with State of Decay 2, when that one came out, we basically said the players should be able to fail. It feels good to not fail if failure was possible. And so we hope we have tuned the difficulty in such a way that most people don't feel like they're on the edge of failure all the time, because that can be a really demoralizing experience. But we wanted there to be the possibility of failure, so that when you succeed, it feels good knowing that you didn't have to. That it wasn't a foregone conclusion that you were going to survive. So Ice Warrior 643 asks, can we get only one curveball at a time? I imagine that once folks are, addressing the question of should we allow players to have some customization control over the rate of curveballs. Maybe that's a factor that could go into that. It's worth bringing up. And I know that, by the way, I don't know whether they are in the chat right now or if they're going to watch this later, but folks from Wushu are paying attention to this, and so they will have heard that soon. And so, yeah, that'll be in somebody's brain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think someone already answered, but yeah, you can have more than one at a time. You can have, I think, up to 3 at a time. So they definitely do, and they stack. So you can have zombies get multiple different kind of powers at the same time that can make things pretty interesting.
So yeah, so if that's what you're not looking for, if you want to space that out, that's not an option in the game right now, but maybe that's something that folks will keep in mind. Brian Menard wants to know if Wushu Studios is planning on doing more with State of Decay or if this was just a one-off. They are still working on State of Decay 2. So yeah, we don't have any announceable plans about what they're doing next beyond just the fact that they're continuing to work on the Curveball update and making sure that bugs that slipped in and stuff like that are recovered from. They've got that going on, but beyond that, nothing to announce. But they're definitely still working on the game, and we've got high hopes for what they're going to be able to accomplish.
Yeah, we got plenty of upcoming. I mean, there's an infinite list of things we would want to do with the game, and so there's always more to work through.
Yeah, like the game is never done, and so just the question is just whether Wushu will be doing it or whether somebody else will be doing it. But so far, the plan is for Wushu to be doing it. So if you like the Curveball update, there's probably more of that to come.
Yeah. So I think we'll be supporting Curveballs for a bit, and then we've got other things we're always paying attention to, what issues with past updates or just the wish list. There's definitely some things on the wish list we want to knock off as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to be continuing to work on some other stuff as well as Curveballs in the future.
This is Nuts wants to know, do the Curveballs repeat for your community or is it just one and done?
So I think, like I mentioned before, there's a cooldown. So like when you have a curveball, you have to see, I think, a certain amount of other curveballs before you can see that one again. But I think they can repeat. I think there's certain ones that have controls that are like, this really doesn't make sense to happen more than once in a given community. But for the most part, most things can repeat, but there's just, things in place just to make it not happen too often and be too repetitive.
And also, the curveballs have, like, internal variability, too. So, like, you could get the same curveball twice, but, like, for instance, the Lone Raider could be, capturing different resources. Or, the pumped-up Juggernaut could have different things about it that have been made more powerful. Yeah,
I think that's one thing to comment on. So I'll bring up the curveball menu here. So you can see, like, these are kind of, like, explosive gunk zombies. Like, that's like a curveball itself, but like some of them, there's like one called Strange Mutations, which is kind of, it's the zombies have changed in some way, but there's multiple different effects that can be rolled with that curveball. So you can, either they could be faster or they could have like better perception, or there's different one, like, so it could roll a different combination of effects within that single curveball. So that curveball kind of like is more a guideline for like it's like a kind of a pool of, these are a little group of related effects that all kind of are thematically linked. So you could get different combinations of those each time that curveball rolls.
So King P1 wants to know if we went back and forth about the name of the Curveball update. I mean, I know that there's definitely, there's a lot of like funny jokes that you can make using the word ball in various different ways. So it's a little bit of a risky one. But I think that there were a few different names that floated around for what these things were called. Curveball really worked though, because the whole idea of it is meant to sound like it's something fun and surprising that changes things up, that makes you have to think in a new way. And that's sort of the implication that the word curveball carries with it. So once you come up with a name like that really reflects the vibe of a feature, it's hard to talk yourself into calling it anything else.
Yeah, we had some other things that were like, it kind of sounds nice, but it's a little too long-winded, or just didn't really convey the attitude of it. I'm trying to remember some of the other names, but they've slipped my mind, but they didn't really kind of conveyed the idea that these are like surprises that kind of are intended to pop up and kind of change things up, that they're not supposed to just make it harder or easier and whatnot. So Curveball was, I think, kind of just the best thing. Like, we just kept coming back to like, no, this is the one that really kind of conveys what this is about the best. and is also very succinct and is not this like rambling sentence of an update name.
Yeah, and one of the things, I mean, it is a little bit tough though for localization, because in English, people who from the United States know what a curveball is because it's the national sport of the United States. Baseball, it's a baseball reference. Baseball isn't played in a lot of other places. There are definitely places where it is played, but it's not the hot sport that it is here. A lot of places play soccer, or football, I guess I should call it. Anyway, and so localizing the name was interesting because they had to solve the problem of the word curveball just not having a clear equivalent in every other language. So I know that in Spanish it's called giros inesperados, something like that, which I think just means like unexpected twists. So, like, it's whatever you would describe the end of an M. Night Shyamalan movie, I think, is probably what it's called.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, because La Coalición was asking me about that a lot leading up to it, because he was doing a lot of sort of, pre-release hype about it within his community, but he didn't have a name for it because it wasn't going to be called Curveball in Spanish. But what was it going to be called? It could be called anything. Essentially, I don't know. If I had like a time to have an alternate career separate from game design, getting into translation, localization of stuff sounds fascinating because you have to solve so many weird problems, figuring out how to explain one idea in a language that idea wasn't conceived in.
Yeah, and I mean, I know there's curveballs in multiple sports, but I don't think it's not very universal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely the tricky thing about like doing an international game when, curveball to us is so ingrained that it's just
everyone knows how you use that word.
And we forget that it's like, because we use it a lot of times not any like outside of sports, just as a normal, just part of our language, just a turn of phrase.
Yeah.
But
that was a curveball. Yeah, totally.
But it's easy to forget that it comes from a very specific sport, and then
wouldn't
that's
necessarily
not universal.
Translate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was about to say, like, oh yeah, a curveball. It's something that comes out of left field. Also a baseball reference. So yeah, I don't know. It's so Warbucks too wants to know, is Wushu working on bug fixes for the general game? So this particular update, because they were very focused on this one big elaborate feature, it doesn't include any additional quality of life fixes or anything like that, like we often do with some of these updates. But that is also on Wushu's plate. Just general maintenance of the game, paying attention to the wish list, paying attention to problems and solving them. And so even though this particular update doesn't have, like, normally this would be a patch notes stream where we're just listing all the patch notes and going through all the crazy things we put in the game. We're not doing that this time because it really is just about this one huge elaborate feature. But in the future, I think you should expect that some of these updates will have quality of life fixes and stuff like that. They're taking on the same mantle basically that we had for a long time, which is just make this game better in all the ways it needs to be better.
Yeah, exactly. It was just in this one. This was their focus, was just curveball. But going forward, they're definitely going to be expanding their kind of what they look at.
But yeah, it's kind of funny though that the word curveball has kind of like, it's permeated the English-speaking world so far that this was, the folks who made this, of course, Wushu is from Liverpool, where baseball is not typically played. And I was really amused by the fact that while you're going in here, I'm going to switch to one of our other views here. So this background art that we've got here, this was made by Lucy, one of the folks from Wushu that we interviewed, I think an episode or two ago. And you'll notice that you can't really see it because I've got me and Eric in front of it, but I just love that it's so full of like American colors and American like patriotic symbolism, because I think somebody from England is like is like, oh, curveball, this is baseball themed. Well, this is the most American thing I've ever had to make, and so just filled it all with American stuff. So if those of you out there who just really love patriotic imagery, that's another reason to be excited about Curveball, because it is just steeped in the red, white, and blue.
Yeah, I still love it though. It's great.
So, other stuff that we can talk about. So I do actually have a list here of all of the curveballs. I know that some folks have actually been doing like either just a lot of experimentation in the game or even data mining, trying to figure out how many curveballs are there. What is the list? Particularly folks like Arvid and Coalición, people who do like breakdowns of like this is everything in the game. Have been really interested in that. So I've got a list here. I could just, I mean, we usually do a patch note list anyway. I know that hearing me list stuff isn't always the most exciting thing in the world, but if you wanted to have it, here we go. So, Explosive Gunk Zombies is always the first one. Then the Lone Raider is always the second one. Then there's one called Vicious Rumor, which I think has something to do with influence earnings. And I'm not going to try to explain what all of them are, partly because I don't know, and partly because discover them yourself. There's one called Radio Silence. It's the fourth one. Scavengers Leftovers.
Oh, I made mistakes.
Ransacked Outpost. Missing
idea.
a Few Bolts. Gargantuan Mutation. We've seen that one on this stream. That's when the Juggernaut becomes a bunch more powerful. Out for Blood. That one, I want to find out. I don't actually know what that one is. I want to find out
remember which one that is. I don't have a good connection of what the names are to the ones inside them.
Yeah, because I think sometimes naming is one of the last things you'll change about something. Once you see everything about how it works, that's when you come up with the right name for it. When you're first experimenting with it, which is when Eric saw a lot of these things, it'll have a completely different name. Elevated Senses. I imagine that makes it harder to sneak around zombies. Strange Mutations, that it encompasses several different things. The Black Heart, that's a particular tough one, and actually this is something that was not advertised about this before, but we should call it out. The Black Heart, if you defeat that particular very challenging curveball, that one carries prestige as a reward. So we've already been introducing prestige rewards outside of Daybreak, tied to the updates to the sieges and stuff like that. This is another way that you can get prestige. If you see that Black Heart come in, you've got the opportunity to get some more of that currency outside of Daybreak.
Oh no, I've put myself in a bad spot.
Stuck command.
Really?
Oh, here you go.
I don't like roads, and so I always try to cross country it, and I often pay the price. Oh my God.
So we've got Thick-Skinned, Under the Weather, Fuel, and that did not add weather to the game, just before anybody asks. Under the Weather did not add weather to the game. Fueling the Plague, the Bullet Benefactor, which I guess is like the Bounty Broker, but not. Finer Things in Life, A Well-Oiled Machine, News Travels, Up and Atom, Dulled Senses, Just Fed, Soft Skins. So I imagine that might be the opposite of Thick Skin. Seems like they're probably related to each other. But I don't know, because I'm not intimately involved with any of these.
Yeah, I think, that makes it so they, I think, take more shots.
Like zombies will either take more shots or take fewer shots to kill?
I think so, to the dome, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, if you have to take multiple shots to the head to kill a zombie, that it does completely change up what's going on.
Yeah, that makes range combat definitely a lot trickier.
So we got the Broken Heart, Influx of Meds, which is the one that is not actually in the game right now. It's been disabled because of a bug. High Toxicity Bloaters. Okay, that sounds terrifying. Lost Platoon. I've done that one. That's a bunch of there's a bunch of armored zombies in a particular place that you gotta fight. Zombie Burnout. Cesspit Zombies. This is really gross. Juiced Up. Scavenger Hunt. Sentinel Mutation. High Temperature Z's, Bait Crate. Bait Crate is the one that's like the Cleo drops from the original Euro Survival Edition.
Yep.
That one's, I'm excited. I haven't run into that one in person, but I'm excited. And then Hyper Auditory Mutation. So that's it. That was a list of 35. And again, with Influx of Meds turned off, it's 34. But with Strange Mutations being so variable, maybe it's more like 36. I don't know. You decide which number is most compelling to you.
Yeah, Bait Crate, I haven't seen that one yet. That was the one I was really excited for when I heard about it, because I'm like, that's the Cleo drops, the classic Cleo drops. Oh, you jerks. Yeah, so seeing that back, because I love that risk versus reward kind of thing of like, oh, there's good loot, but it's gonna be a ton of zombies that are drawn into there.
Dougie Fresh, not that Dougie Fresh, wants to know, do curveballs randomize, or are they always in a certain order? So as I understand it, once the first two are always in the same order, then after that, it goes wild, and there's rules about it. It's not completely 100% random, but yeah, it is basically, you should expect it to be yours to be in a different order from somebody else's. Oh, Sir Zombie 182 wants to know: do I have to make a new community, or can I use old save files for the Curveball events?
Yeah, so you can use old save files.
This is actually one we're playing in right now.
Yeah, and so it kind of, I think, depending on if you're running an old save or a new save, it will actually have the Curveballs trigger at different times. So if you're playing an old save, I think, and you're like past day 5 or something like that, then it will just kind of kick off whenever. And I think, yeah, if you're doing a new save, then there's a kind of a grace period where the curveballs don't happen for a period of time for like the first 5 days.
Yeah, they figured that you should get used to the actual regular baseline vanilla game first, and then add the chocolate chips.
Yeah, and yeah.
Apparently that was an ice cream metaphor. I don't know what I was doing there. But.
Yeah, I definitely want you to get some time to like get on your feet before we start throwing new stuff at you.
Yeah, especially if you're a brand new player. You're like, you can't change something up until you know what the something is.
Yeah, especially if you're new, like, because I mean that's really what this is trying to do, is to make it for like veteran players who have played a long time and have bored of, like, they've seen everything there is to see, and they need some variety to keep things fresh. That doesn't make sense for new players so much, because they need a baseline to start from to know what is actually being changed up.
So, I have not actually looked for this yet, but Tudo Sobre Games wants to know how to turn off curveballs if they want to. And so I know that the option doesn't appear in your menu until you've experienced them for the first time, but I'm actually not sure where it is.
So I think I should be able to do it now.
Exploring?
Yeah, so go to, I'll go back
there it is.
So we can
I
see.
saw it.
Yeah, settings, and then gameplay, and then
enable curveball events. So it's the 6th one on the list under gameplay, but it has to be after, like, it's not just like, it has to be after that 5 days. Like, you have to actually have seen your first curveball and gotten into the curveball tutorial before this option appears on the settings menu.
I think you may have to finish the first 2 tutorials. I think you have to finish both curveballs. I think for it to appear, if I remember correctly. But after those 2, because I want to like let you see, like, here's what it is before you actually say I don't want it.
Before you make a judgment
get
on
an
one way
idea
or the other.
Yeah, so
that makes sense.
Have it introduced to you so you understand what it is, and then it opens up that option. I do think we want to look at possibly moving where we have that option. I think it's maybe in a slightly awkward spot just because we don't really have any like community specific settings in that settings menu.
Yeah,
because
one thing that I could see people wanting is saying like, oh, this is the community where I play with curveballs, and this is the community where I do not, and that is not an option right now. You have to turn them on and off universally, basically, when you're playing. So, but yeah, so Tudo Sobre, it could easily be that that's why you couldn't find it, is because you didn't actually get to the point yet in the progression where it was unlocked for the first time, but that's where you should look for it. So there you go.
Yeah.
Sir Classified says, always keep it on. Giga Juggernauts are a must. There are definitely people out there who have been, they've been playing in the lethal zone for a really long time. They really want the game to get harder. And so anything that can make even parts of the game harder, they're just like, yes, please, put it in my veins.
That's the thing I think I'm really looking forward to. If we are able to get those controls in where we can change the pacing to have them fire off faster and let you change whether you want to go more towards the beneficial ones or the challenging ones. I'm looking forward to the people who just crank it up and say, give me the hardest ones as fast as possible, and then just seeing the chaos that ensues from that.
So Redfield in the chat has got a suggestion. An invincible juggernaut is stalking you for 15 minutes. So it would be like It Follows, basically. There's just this slow thing that is just always following you around that you can't kill. That does sound pretty clever. Maybe, I don't know if it would fit in the universe necessarily, because everything in this world can be destroyed. That's part of the vibe. But still, I could totally see that being... It would almost be like playing like Alien Isolation or something like that, right? Where it's just like this undefeatable monster just coming after you.
Yeah. You have to give it... I mean, that's also something I think we struggled with a lot of this stuff, making sure we were giving the right narrative grounding for a lot of things. Trying to give that right... And so, like, justifying something like that would definitely be tricky without stretching the lore too thin.
Yeah. So Vikia wants to know, are there going to be additional Curveball updates in the future? Well, certainly Wushu is currently working on fixes to some of the bugs that shipped with this. So luckily, only a couple of minor things, an exploit here, a bug there, but they're working on that. So definitely that's going to happen. And then really a lot depends on the audience interest. How much people are getting into Curveballs and how much positive feedback they get. Like if everyone's like, yes, please, we love these and we want more of them. If that's the message we're getting from the audience, then I'm sure Wushu will want to continue to add to the list. But if it emerges to crickets, then we'll find something else to do. There's all kinds of ways it could go. But so far, we've seen a lot of positivity from the audience about Curveballs, and so I wouldn't be surprised. Let's say I wouldn't be surprised if Wushu spent some more time on them.
I imagine also a lot of it will be depending on what ones we hear people liking, and because that's something we did a little bit of in the PTR where we sent out the survey and tried to see which ones really resonated with people and which ones did people just kind of I don't really care about that one, and kind of getting a taste for which ones really click with people and probably trying to do more things like that. So if you got feedback on any curveballs, kinds of curveballs you really tend to like, then please let us know so that we can kind of expand on that in the future.
Yeah. Jay Talbot wants to know, do you guys have a canon difficulty? I would say no, actually. I think so. One of the reasons why we call our difficulty levels zones is because what we're trying to say is not that the zombie apocalypse is this easy or this hard for everyone. What we're trying to say is that the zombie apocalypse is uneven. There's some places that are really scary and really bad, and some places that are a little bit lighter and easier to manage. And so when you're in the green zone or in the nightmare zone or in the lethal zone, you're in a different physical location from people who are in the other zones. So it's all one world, and all of these things are happening in all these places. Some places have got a lot of plague zombies. Some places have a lot less plague zombies. And that's just the sort of uneven nature of reality. So yeah, just like in real life, there are lives that are difficult and lives that are easy. In our game, there are experiences that are harder and experiences that are easier, and that's just part of being in a diverse and complex world.
Yeah, though we did, I guess in a way you could say standard was just because it was what we launched with, but...
Yeah, even then though, it's those decisions we made around that were kind of some of them were, we want it to be hard, but we also don't want to drive players away. And so we didn't really push the difficulty all that hard because we were more worried about shelf moments from players than we were about whether we were challenging players enough, because we knew we could add harder stuff later on if we needed to, the same way we did with Breakdown, with the original State of Decay. So I think we probably skewed it a little easier than we would have if we were just making the game for the core audience rather than trying to make an expansive game that has a broader audience of lots of different people who might or might not be interested in a harrowing, highly difficult, murderous scenario, but who still wanted to live in the zombie apocalypse. And so because I think it's good that we went broad like that. I think that was the intent. But I think we also always intended there to be at least places in our world that were incredibly difficult, like the danger zones in Lifeline. And so I think when we did the Choose Your Own Apocalypse update and the Lethal Zone update and the Green Zone update, all of those were things that we always kind of wanted. We wanted our game to be able to represent all of those different experiences. So yeah. Eric, you are absolutely right. Yes, we would probably, if you're going to have a canon difficulty, pick standard, of course. But I think it's better if the canon difficulty is everybody's difficulty is real.
Yeah. It's whatever your preferred is. I typically think of it more like what's closest to State of Decay 1, because in my head, I'm like, well, that established the canon. So that's probably maybe more like Dread, maybe?
I think so, yeah.
State of Decay 1's pretty tough. Definitely.
Yeah, ferals are hard to fight in State of Decay 1. Crap. Speaking of hard, you are sick now.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
I do have, I think, 3 cures back in the supply locker. So
that's good.
If you can just, survive to get back into your car, then I think we'll be all right.
I need that to stop at any time.
Oh, and now you got some purple guys coming at you. What's up with the purple guys?
They have enhanced, I think, hearing, but impaired vision.
Oh, interesting.
So that was the curveball I got that rolled up, was a changed zombie perception. Oh, can I? Because I jumped off a cliff to get down here, didn't I?
Oh,
Can
yeah.
I get back up?
She knows how to get back up. Oh, and you are in the zone. You're in the curveball zone
yep.
right now.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be interesting. This guy may be dead. We'll see.
Are you pointing towards the invisible wall? No, okay. I couldn't quite tell.
Hopefully I'm going to my outpost so I can grab some stuff. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm entirely winging it.
When you do get this character, cured and back to safety, let's have a look at the curveball menu again, because we should look at this third curveball that this community has encountered and just see what we can learn about it.
Okay, yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me save this guy's life. All right. Yeah, there we go.
I love the little Xbox cursor that you've got. Because we've got an Xbox in here, and so we actually hooked up a mouse and keyboard to our Xbox.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so that Eric, our PC player, could actually enjoy the game like a normal person.
Okay. Now that guy's okay.
So
yes.
So they're great at hearing, but their eyesight is impaired. So you can just walk in front of them as long as you're not making any noise, basically.
Yeah. What I also think it means is that if you do have any hostiles on the map that are kind of pesky, using noisemakers on them would be
that'll be more effective because it'll draw in zombies from further away.
Yeah, so you can pull in a lot more than normal.
Oh, I love that Juggernaut who's just hanging out outside the world over there.
Oh, God.
He's got no idea what he's like the kid at the theater performance who just can't find his way through the curtains at the back. He's like, wait, I'm supposed to be on stage. Where am I? So we're getting towards the end, so I should probably talk about something else that's going on later this week. So we're announcing this, I think, today for the first time. We're going to be doing a free play weekend for State of Decay 2, both on Steam and on Xbox. And so that means basically from Thursday morning at 10 o'clock Pacific all the way through Monday morning at 10 o'clock Pacific. That's the 21st until the 25th. Of September 2023, in case you're watching this way later and you're like, when is this for? We're going to be doing a free play weekend. And so that means that anybody can download and play State of Decay 2 for free. Once the weekend's over, they no longer have a license to play the game. But this could be the perfect opportunity. Like if you've got friends out there who you've always wanted to encourage them to try out State of Decay 2 or get them to play with you in multiplayer, but cost was an issue. This is the weekend for you. Like, let your friends know they can try out this game for free. They can play with you if that's how you roll. And we'd love to get as many people trying out this game as we can, because when the game came out in 2018, it was really different from the way it is today. And there's a lot of folks who maybe, who could have bounced either because of reviews that they read or word of mouth that they got, who might actually really like the game today. We want to give them an opportunity to discover it and see, what the state of the game is in 2023, 5 years after release, with constant work being done on this game to keep expanding it and improving it. So let folks know that's coming. So this Thursday, 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, that's going to be the free play weekend is going to kick off, both Steam and Xbox. And to celebrate that, actually, a little bit later that day, I think we're aiming at 1 o'clock. We're going to be coming back into the studio. It's going to be me and Joe Swarner, and we're going to be playing the game for a couple of hours, doing another stream. And we're going to be, live not only on Twitch and on YouTube, but also on Steam. And it's going to be fun. So, and it just occurred to me, actually. Okay, good. We are actually streaming to Steam now. It occurred to me that was one of our goals for today, but I forgot to check whether I had clicked the right button to make that happen. So I did. Good. Somebody is probably watching us live on our Steam store page right now, and I just noticed that you existed. So hello, Steam people. I hope that if you have not bought our game yet, that you'll try it out on the free play weekend and find out if you like it before jumping in.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's always great seeing a lot of new players come in with those weekends.
Yeah, totally. Because for some people it's just they get to find out what this game is and then they get to move on. But there's some other folks, they might actually find a hobby that they really, really like. And so, we would love to welcome new folks into our community. Indeed. So, So I have newly started playing in the lethal zone, and so my ferals now have the armored heads, and they are so much more scary now.
I don't want to deal with that. I think that's the main thing that makes me not want to play lethal, is I don't think I'm ready for lethal ferals.
Yeah, no, they are freaking obnoxious. because like you get really used to, like in all of the other difficulty levels, you get used to the idea that if you got a character with gunslinging, 3 ferals can be charging you, and you're just like, aim, snap, bang, aim, snap, bang, aim, snap, bang. And as long as you see them coming and prepare for them, they're fine. But the problem with the lethal ferals is they take like 3 headshots to kill, and so you can't just like taking out 1 feral that's charging at you is just as hard as taking out 3 ferals that are charging you in another difficulty level, and those are 2 very different experiences.
And I don't even play with the snap, the aim snap too, so I have to free shoot them as well.
Yeah, I actually the other day I had just lost a character. I wasn't playing in the lethal zone. I had just lost a character, and I was so like pissed off. I got into one of those like you get into like a mom lifting a car to save her baby.
Yeah.
And so like normally I am not a good enough shot to take out ferals, but I got like right after that I got charged by 3 ferals. They were like coming around my car, and I just like bang 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 just took all 3 of them out, 3 bullets, and I felt so good afterwards.
Nice.
It almost made losing Sydney better. Not quite, but almost. Felt like I got my revenge.
Yeah, had to make sure she didn't die in pain.
Yeah. Okay, we are running low on time. So what are you headed towards right now?
I was trying to do some of these kind of legacy missions.
Oh, dude, you're getting me bounties. Awesome.
Oh, and that too.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Incidental, but yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so don't claim any bounties, because I've been funneling all of my bounty rewards into my lethal zone community, who would not survive otherwise. So basically I'll run around in like a green zone community, do a bunch of bounties, and then have the lethal zone community collect the rewards for them.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So there's a hot tip.
No,
Tips and tricks for the
not
audience.
Not paying
there.
attention to them at all. I was just doing missions, just finding some interesting things to do. Now I'm just going into the worst parts of the map.
At least the worst parts of the map to drive a van.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed an opportunity for a van down by the river joke back when you were getting stuck in the rapids.
Oh,
Oh well.
Although I don't know if anyone's old enough anymore to even get that.
That's
aside
true.
from us.
It's a joke for the old
That's an
people.
old person joke now.
Nobody gets Chris Farley jokes anymore.
Yeah, that's sad.
That's so
yeah,
sad.
I have to remember that we're old. Yeah. What do these people want?
I don't know.
Okay. Oh, okay. I think they want to take out a plague heart. Well,
Yeah, folks in the chat are also amazed that we're making Chris Farley jokes.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. Well, it is 3:57, so it's probably about time to be done with this. So, Eric, thank you so much for coming in and and playing the game for us, because it is so much easier to talk about stuff and read the chat when somebody else is playing.
Yeah, I will attest that playing and talking is hard. I definitely have to mode switch to do that. It is tricky. I don't know how people I don't know how you do that.
Oh, no, I mean, I do it badly. I don't know how Brian Menard does it, because Brian Menard is very good at actually, if you don't follow Brian Menard, go follow Brian Menard. But he's, like he would be playing really challenging games, showing off how good he is at video games, and keep up with his chat the whole time. I just basically I'll just play an intense part of a game, ignore my chat for a solid 15 minutes, and then come back and just switch to camera mode and just study the chat and try to catch up, because I can't do it live. I can't. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I think I have the thing, and I don't realize I stopped talking for 10 minutes straight, and I'm like, oh crap, I was supposed to be doing things, but I lock in. I also have ADHD, so I think that hyperfixation kicks in. I'm like, no, I have a task now, and that's what's going to be happening.
So, Chucky Bucky has a question, and actually, this is if anyone from Wushu is listening, this is something I would love to skip. I've been wanting to fix this issue since literally the first update that we did post-release. They say, this may sound like a dumb question. I had a survivor dying in a bloater cloud, so she became a zombie, and I was trying to find her to kill her and get her backpack and gear, and well, I couldn't find her. So this has happened to me many times. There have been multiple episodes of my personal stream where it's like one episode I get a character killed, and like 15 episodes later I finally find the zombie and I kill them and take their stuff. We should mark them. We should make it so you can find that person on the map. And this is something that I wanted to do, like with the very first update I had anything to do with, and we just never got around to it, and we just keep not getting around to it and keep not getting around to it. So Wushu, if you're watching this, feel free to put that on your schedule.
It's on our list, because I've got a big list of like priority things like that that we're keeping track of. Like, here's the things we want to make sure get looked at.
I think when you polled the team asking about that, I think I put that at the top of my list.
Yeah,
when you were compiling that.
It's definitely on the list, nearest the top. I think there's some other high priority things in front of it, but it's definitely one of the things where like this is now our opportunity to like, especially now like when I was kind of setting up this list, like now I can just push forward all these things that like we've been wanting to do forever. So I'm like, let's put that in there. So.
Yeah, Eric and I have both been in the sort of the weird position of having a certain amount of like creative agency over what was going on with the game, but never 100%. We don't like the studio is not a very sort of auteur-driven studio where one person just gets to have an agenda and make things happen. There's always a complicated set of motivations from lots of different people always going into the decisions we make around here, which is kind of cool. It means we hear a lot of voices and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but each person ends up with just one hobby horse, just one thing that they care about that they just never get, they talk about all the time and they never get done. So that's one of mine. But yeah, anyway, we are out of time and I've been talking way too long. So I couldn't skip that question. Once I saw Chucky Bucky ask that question, I was like, well, oh yeah, I've been saying this for 5 years. I'm going to say it again. So there we go. Anyway, Eric, thank you so much. Really appreciated you doing this, like I said before. And of course, the fact that I've been working on State of Decay 3 for over a year now, and this game was in such good hands for so long, and then was able to be passed off to more good hands with Wushu. Like, I really appreciate it. So thank you for everything you did to make this thing happen. And
thanks for having me here, too. It's always fun to come on stream and get to see the game and play the game and everything. So this is great. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's go to the outro and remind everybody, come back for more Curveball action during our free play weekend. That is Thursday the 21st. We'll be streaming here, but also you can just play the game yourself for free. So go and do that. And yeah, we'll see you later.